project. So Linda is the director of the Oregon Flora, which used to be called the Oregon Flora Project, and a research assistant professor in Department of Botany and Plant Pathology at Oregon State University. Yes. She received an undergraduate degrees in botany and marine biology at the University of Texas at Austin and a PhD in botany at the University of Washington. Linda guides the Oregon Flora program and its production of a state flora in the form of books and an interactive website. She creates partnerships with diverse stakeholders to fulfill the goals of the Oregon Flora, which address plant diversity, working agricultural lands, and the use of native species in gardens and landscapes. And I'm very excited to learn about this because I've stumbled around the new website a little bit, but I know that there's a lot more to figure out. It's a really powerful tool. So I'm going to stop my share here. Thank you, Linda. And I will, if folks have any questions, just type them into the chat and we'll be tracking that and answering questions at the end.
Okay. Thank you very much for the invitation. So I think just to keep the stream going smoothly, I'm going to turn off my video and we'll start sharing my screen, because what I'd like to do today is to give you all a guided tour of the Oregon Flora website, tell you a little bit about what it is that our program does and how a lot of our work is communicated through the website, and how hopefully you will find it to be a useful and interesting resource about plants. So here we go. The Oregon Flora website, oregonflora.org, represents really a digital version of the flora. So one of the key things that our program has been doing for the past 26 years is working to produce a comprehensive resource about the plants of our state. And that's called a flora, or a plant identification guide. And we're doing this because the last one that was written was updated in 1961. So it's high time that we have an up-to-date and accurate and current resource about plant diversity, because anybody who's interested in land management, in biodiversity, in habitats, needs this information. So as books, a flora is typically written, and often with many authors that specialize in different plant groups. And the scope of the work that we're doing is the vascular plants of Oregon. So those are things that include ferns, grasses, all the herbs and trees and shrubs that you know. And we're looking at them in the state of Oregon. So in our book version, we have 2 volumes that are currently already published, and we're working on volume 3. You can find dichotomous keys. Those are keys that have 2 options that will ultimately lead you to the name of a plant that will hopefully be that what you've identified for your unknown plant that you're trying to figure out. Detailed descriptions about all of the plants that occur in the state, as well as pen and ink illustrations. Our books also have front chapters that give a context for this kind of information. So in volume 2, we have chapters on gardening and landscaping with native species, and on plant-insect interactions, focusing on butterflies and pollinators. Volume 1 had a great chapter that really set the stage in talking about ecology of Oregon, and great places to see examples of the plant diversity of these different ecoregions. So that information exists in a bound book, but we're taking advantage of digital technology and presenting this in an interactive way through our website. So this lets us do a whole bunch more and lets you as users do a whole bunch more and interact with this information. And what I'm going to do now is walk you through some of these tools that are creating this interactive flora and show you ways that you can really glean lots of information about the plants of our state and apply this information. So first of all, let's go back to the homepage. And what you'll see on the homepage, as well as in the green header up at the top, is a little search box in which you can type in a plant name, either in the center of the page or up here. And you can put in common names or scientific names. And you'll see a list of names. By choosing this common name, let's go back some and see. So you can see you can choose from any type of name. And this will give you a list of what's available for that particular name. So you see here that we've got a couple of different species. And let's just choose one. And these are going to open up a profile page. So every single plant that Oregon Flora covers in our work has a profile page that gives you all of the information that we know about that particular species. So this is going to be the scientific name. And over here is all of the nomenclature and categorization of it. So you have the plant family, alternative names or synonyms that have been applied to this particular plant. Here's the origin. That's something whether it's a native, a non-native, or a non-naturalized plant, something that hasn't established itself in the landscape. Because Oregon Flora does cover all the native and naturalized and non-naturalized plants in the state that have been documented as occurring here. You'll also see a little link to an interactive map that shows where this plant has occurs, links to other websites, and descriptions of the plant species. These are this is the information that's found in the Flora of Oregon, or also sometimes in another Flora, the Flora of North America, a multi-volume series as well. We then have all of our field photos and herbarium specimen images. You can look at larger versions of all of these things by clicking down here. And this is opening up what this page looks like. Take note of this because these are all through our website. This is called a detailed collections record page. And what that is a demonstration of all of the information for every single piece of data about a plant that we have in the website. So every photograph, every herbarium specimen, every unvouchered observation that we track has a page like this, and broken down into different fields in a database, all of these different categories of information. So this is a ton of information and links to everything that we have that relate to all of the types of information in our website. So you're going to find these access to these profile pages throughout the website, or you can always just type a name of anything you're curious about in the search box and get information about that particular plant. So let's zoom over here in the main toolbar to the tools. And these are the different tools that we have that help you find information that we've got. So just starting at the top, we have a GIS-based mapping module. And this lets you find information about plants in two basic ways. You can use this blue box up at the top that lets you define an area and then get all of the information about the plant diversity that occurs in that area. And so when you then click inside it, you can then load the records, and this will return all the different plants that have been documented in this area. So looking over here, you can see this long list of all the different things that we have records for. And you can also, by using the Alt key and pressing that down while you click, you can get a little thumbnail that shows some of these details about each particular record. If you want to learn even more about them or go into further depth, just click on them and they'll be highlighted as the map jumps around. And you'll notice also, I've clicked on those 3 plus one additional one. Over on the left-hand side, there's a selections tab. And this is sort of like your shopping cart, where it has collected all of those dots that you clicked on. And then you can go and get those detailed pages about every single record and learn more about that particular observation that was detailed on the map. So I'm going to clear all this now using the reset button. And we're still in the mapping module, but there's another way. So I just showed you how you can look at the diversity of an area that you define, but you can also figure out the distribution of any particular plant. Where all does it occur? So you can do that by typing a plant name into the taxa box. You can then limit it in other ways through time or a particular place, and you'll get a distribution of a particular plant across not only Oregon, but other states in the region from which we've gotten data from other herbaria. You should know that the Oregon Flora website is a Symbiota portal. And Symbiota is the software that is running the website. And it's a collection, a network of biodiversity or natural history collections data. And a lot of herbaria contribute to this. And so we pulled data from many different herbaria in Washington, Nevada, California, even New York Botanical Garden and some of the larger herbaria across the nation, and present Oregon plant taxa in our website through these different collaborations. Another tool that we have is I'm going to talk next about the OSU Herbarium. Being based at Oregon State University, it's been the best place and really the only place to find the most comprehensive collection of Oregon plant specimens on which we can develop a flora. So for the lifetime of the project, we've actually been developing the database to track all of the herbarium specimens and managing those data. And just this past summer, in 2020, we handed over the management of the OSU Herbarium records to the actual collections curator. But we still are using our website, Oregon Flora, as the way to present that information to the world and make it shareable through our Symbiota portal. So in here, you can get all of the different access to records of all of the herbaria records, and that includes fungi and mosses and lichens, all the bryophytes and algae as well. So you can either type in the name, you'll need to do that for the non-vascular plants, or use the drop-down list that appears to find all the records. They appear as a spreadsheet where you can slice and dice it and arrange it however you like, or as individual little boxes. You can also, through this website, using the little hard to see word collections up here, tap into all the other herbaria that we're networked with, and you can see a list of these right here. And you can, again, select individual ones or exclude certain collections and see all the records from that. Okay, another tool I'd like to tell you about is the Inventories tool. So Inventories, as the name here says, is a section of our website where we talk about places and then give you all the information about the plants that we know that occur in that particular place. And so these records about a particular place can be either photos or lists that individuals or groups or government agencies have submitted to Oregon Flora, or herbarium specimens. We have a couple of different projects that sort of organize our thoughts about these inventories. And one is one that to when we were looking at the hard copies of the Flora, and that is the collection that's featured in Volume 1 of Flora of Oregon, which talks about sort of the 50 best places to see examples of Oregon's plants. So if you would look into that, you could then select any one of these and get a list of the plants available. You can either do it spatially or select a name or search for a name. So let's go and look at the second one. I want to spend a little bit of time on this. Many of you who are longtime NPSO members, right, might remember in our previous website how we had an opportunity for groups and individuals to submit species lists. This has been a really great partnership that was started with the Native Plant Society in its support and sponsorship of Oregon Flora Project. And in this, when groups or chapters would go on hikes or walks, they'd often create a species list and then submit it to Oregon Flora, and these would be added to our atlas. Well, we have all of these lists now, as we do continue to accept species lists of observations from various individuals or groups. And here you can go to an area. So say you want to go on a hike in some area and you're curious if there's already been a species list made of that place. So you can just navigate there on a map and then view a list, or you could type something in, a name, and search on something like $8 Mountain and see some lists there. So let's open one of these. And in this particular species list that was contributed by the late Frank Lang, he produced a list that had 167 different plant species in it. What you'll see, and this is a typical layout that as you work through our website, you'll become familiar with these options, and hopefully it'll become very intuitive for you to use these. We have a list of everything that was included in those 167 different species that Dr. Lang recorded when he made this list. They're organized at this view by plant families, but say in this, as you are exploring this list, you want to see it with common names. You can rearrange your search to do that and see them. I'm sorry, I see them. Or maybe you want to see them as thumbnail pictures. So here you have the common name displayed with the scientific name. And you also have little thumbnails. This is a great way to get a quick visual sense of what's out there and what you might be encountering. Or you could also see, let's take it off of images because it's takes a little less space. You can, when I do this box called Vouchers and Taxon Authors, you'll see that it lists not only the authority or the person who originally gave the scientific name for this plant, but you see a lot of different other occurrences afterwards. And these are the actual records that were used to contribute to this list. And so remember that view that we had of the detailed collection record page? Well, here's one about this particular list. And just to show you how fractal this website is, we're looking at this in a species list. And so this particular record is included in two options. This one that we're looking at, list number 88, and also in this one that I spoke about earlier from the volume 1 of the Flora of Oregon list of great places to see botanical records. So we've now been exploring this list that was created when Dr. Lang made his species list and submitted it. But say you're out there at $8 Mountain in this area and you have a plant, but you don't know what it is, but you'd kind of like to know. And you've started by finding this great species list, but still not sure what you're looking at. So instead, go to the Identify view that's available. And this presents just the plants that were found in this particular species list, but it now gives you a bunch of filters that you can use to winnow it down and help you identify your unknown. So if you grab some plant when you're out hiking around $8 Mountain and you see that it's a shrub, if you tap or click on that, your list just got narrowed down from 151 to 20. And you can go on and do similar things that deal with either vegetation types, the leaves, or you can deal with flowers. And by choosing any combination of these to limit your list, you then get your list smaller and smaller. And then you can just look at pictures and then read the descriptions and say, is this what I really have? I'm in the right place. And when I look over this description and compare it to the photos, yeah, I actually had a tan bark oak sample that I found. So this then is an example of how you can use our Inventories tool to get you from a place that you're curious about and see if somebody else has made a list of that. Or you can, and then once you have that list as a starting place, you can look through and use it sort of as a checklist, because you can print it off and take it with you on a hike, or you can use it as a place to start trying to identify a plant if you found something there that you don't recognize. Okay, so the next tool I'd like to tell you about is our Identify Plants. This is very similar in concept of what we just talked about, only it goes on a slightly larger scale in that you can look through the whole state and try and figure out some plant that you have that you don't know what it is, and you want to identify it. So again, in contrast to using the paper-bound Flora, which contains much more detailed descriptions and options for your plant, this paints sort of with a broader brush, and it will get you pretty close in the ballpark, but it's always a good idea to check it with the detailed descriptions or with dichotomous keys to get the very precise terminology and character states that let you get something down to a subspecies or variety. But a lot of people don't have that background that makes them feel comfortable with doing that, or they don't have a copy of the Flora, or they aren't really interested or a little bit intimidated by all that crazy botanical jargon. So we wanted to make our website something that's really exciting and accessible to a lot of people. So as an alternative way to identify things, we have this very straightforward filtering method that's also used in our Wildflowers app, a mobile app. So because we usually know where we are on the planet, just roughly, the way to use this identifying tool is to tap or click on the map wherever you are or where your unknown is, and that's the starting place. And then you can, depending upon your level of sophistication or your uncertainty, you can add in a plant family if you know what family it's already in, or you can enter a radius, otherwise it'll automatically choose a radius. Let's just press search, and this creates a list of all of the documented plant species known to occur within an area of that place you indicated on the map. In this instance, from this latitude longitude point on the map, our database indicates that there are 844 different plant taxa that occur in that area. So just like we were showing on the Inventories tool, we're in this identify mechanism, and you simply select from the filters over on the left-hand side and choose those that you recognize in your unknown plant to start winnowing down your list. You might be in a wetland. And so let's select that we're in a wetland, and that's narrowed it down significantly by about 25%. You can also choose, again, characters for the plant, the green parts or the flowers. Again, it doesn't have to be in any order. But I also at this time want to point out another feature that we have and that we're developing further, which is specialized keys. Because if you're familiar with some plants, a lot of them look the same, and you can have a lot in the same genus that, like, I'm thinking especially of things in the sunflower family. So many of them are just yellow daisy-like things. Well, these characters could use a little help in trying to distinguish between these very similar groups. And so what we've done is made specialized keys for those sort of difficult groups. And the ones that we have currently available on the website include these right here, including ferns, conifers, and in the sedge family. So those of you who are really into carex and sedges, this will be much more helpful because it gives particulars for any of these particular groups that are unique to that particular set of taxonomic related plants. We're also developing specialized keys for the Poaceae or the grasses, the Asteraceae or the sunflower family, and Fabaceae or the legumes. So when you start thinking about those things that all look the same, like those yellow composites, or to me, most of the grasses all look the same, or clovers, you'll now have some help with a more specialized selection of filters that you can use to narrow it down. Otherwise, you can just sort through these various filters and select the ones that match your unknown plant. And then you can, again, look at the profile pages for your candidates as your list gets smaller and smaller, and review all of the different information types that you have to see if it matches what your unknown is, and thereby help you identify that interesting thing that you've found out on your adventures. Okay, I think the last tool that I'm going to share with you today is called Grow Natives. And this is one that has been a way for Oregon Flora to get people aware and excited about native plant species and how they can be used in gardens, landscapes, and restoration projects. So the information that we have here, again, this concept is something that we've seen in several tools now, is that, but in this instance, we have right now just over 200 different plant species that are commercially available for use in plantings in your garden or your window boxes or a landscaping project. And this applies to both home settings, commercial settings, and restoration settings. So the filters that we have over on the left are ones that are sort of focused on cultivation or horticultural interests, things that as somebody, manipulating and growing a plant species or a little plant community, things that you can work with or select from or optimize. So again, we have features about the plants themselves, as well as sort of ancillary functions of the plants. Are they good butterfly nectar plants, or do they support pollinators? And then you also have a lot about how the plant is maintained or can be used, including some typical functions or plant palettes that would work for a particular planting site. Also conditions that you might want to match or create. So if you're trying to deal with a really soggy corner in the back of your yard, you might want to choose things that will tolerate being flooded for half the winter, and that will also sort of match your interest and desire in taking care of. As you look through all these characters, then you can then find some plants that perhaps will pique your interest and learn more about them through their profile page. So like the profile pages I showed you at the beginning, these have all the information we have about them, but again, it's in a it's got the perspective of somebody who's trying to propagate or cultivate or contain these plant species in a planted setting. So hopefully this information will be useful and help guide you on how to better take care of the plants or know what's most appropriate for the kind of situation that you have. You also have a link in this green button here at the lower right that takes you back to the sort of what I call the geeky profile page that gives you the nomenclatural status and the very technical description of this plant as it occurs in the wild. So let's go back to the main garden page. And you'll also notice that there are these plant palettes or these plant combinations that are used to sort of feature common garden types or collections that people might want to use. And you can learn a bit more about those through a little abstract here, and then also go back with that particular collection and use some more of your filters. And I'm going to clear all of that so that we get back to over here. So we are going to be launching this fall an additional 100 species in the Grow Native section that are predominantly east side taxa and also in the Siskiyous. The ones that we have now focus pretty much on the Willamette Valley and the Cascades, and that reflects some of the funding that supported the development of this from the Portland Metro. So you can look forward to even more options in the Grow Natives tool this coming fall. So if you take some time and look through the other tabs on the header, you'll see that there are tutorials that will go over all of these different tools that I've just talked about, and it comes in both video format and written format for those of you, however you like to best absorb information. We also have a little news page that gives little short articles or essays that represent that reflect the different ways that Oregon flora information can be used and is relevant to different groups such as pollinator studies, or another initiative of Oregon Flora is looking at working ag lands. Another couple of resources include our archived newsletters. For many years, Rhoda Love and Eugene was the editor of the Oregon Flora newsletter, and those have great articles that are really timeless about botanists and particular plants and various interests of people and the team of Oregon Flora. So those can be looked at, and also external links to other websites on different topics. You learn about the history of the program, and also not only in the store where I showed you where you can access from our publisher the volumes of the Flora and a Wildflower app, but you can also help us keep these resources available to everybody, freely available on the internet. And hopefully it's something that you find useful in your personal or your professional life, and that you want to help us keep this going and make it something that we can keep growing and helping lots of people explore and enjoy Oregon's plants. So with that, I will take any questions.
That was wonderful. I'm so excited. I knew there was stuff I didn't know about that I would find out about. Let's see. I had a couple of questions that I put into the chat as if I were somebody else, but Christy wanted to say our chapter is a proud supporter of the Oregon Flora, definitely. And I bet some of the people that are in this room also make donations. Could you give an example? So one of the things that, and I think you showed a way, but could you go through a scenario, like say you wanted to find out all the iris species in Jackson County. Could you kind of do that as a scenario with the map? Because the one thing I didn't pick up on, and I could watch the recording, but I think repeating is also useful. how did you get it to show the different colors so that then you could look around and see what was where?
So let's look at all of the iris species. So I'm going to enter, so I'm in the mapping module, and instead of going to an area, let's just get some diversity. So I went to the list over here, and I'm typing iris, the genus name, into the taxa box. You can see I could, if I keep typing, I could limit it to a particular species or more than one species. If you saw the little pop-up, you can separate different plants with a comma and put in a whole bunch of names. But let's just go with the genus.
Okay, that's helpful. That was one thing I was wondering, was how did you select a couple?
Yeah.
Hadn't figured that out. Okay.
And then we want to look in just what county?
Just say Jackson County, since that's where I am.
Okay.
As an example.
Let's just look in Jackson County, and then I load the records. And whoops, there's a dot that probably, this is a good data cleaning. So this is a chance where you can do your sleuthing and send us an email and say, this particular record isn't where it should be. But let's look at the ones that do. And so when I go to the Taxa tab, so we've got 3 tabs here, we just looked at the records, and this is sort of a bit of a mind-numbing view of the 134 different iris occurrences in Jackson County. But let's go to the Taxa tab and see which ones occur there. So there are 3 different species of iris that occur in Jackson County that we have records for. I'm going to hit the auto color button, and that turns them in, and that's a lovely color, but let's get something a little snazzier. So now we've got 3 different colors of our iris indicated. And then when I zoom in, I see this Pseudacarus. I'm going to press my Alt key and click at the same time. And you see this information by a list submitted by the late Jim Duncan that has this plant in it.
Okay.
So
that's totally helpful. That coloring and separating them out, that was what I hadn't spent enough time to figure out. That's great.
Also notice that you can download all of these different types of information in their various formats. So you can download it as, this is like a spreadsheet. You can also, in making a shape, you can download this as a shape file. And then you can use that in other programs. Likewise, you can drag and drop. If you've got a KML file from some other work that you're doing or a different data set, you can put it on top of this and work with different plant species and pull up maybe, say, a butterfly distribution that overlays with a particular plant distribution.
That's terrific. Okay. Thank you so much. What a powerful tool. Cass Blodgett has her hand up, so she has a question.
It's a he, actually.
Okay.
But I get that mistake all the time.
Okay, sorry, my apologies.
That's fine. I'm a user of another Symbiota-based tool called SciNet. It handles all the Southwest plant data, and so I'm a new transplant to Oregon. And was missing that here, and now I'm really happy to see that you have a Symbiota-driven tool. One thing I was tried to do, and I did talk with one of the support people there, but I want to mention it here to see if what the answer is I got myself a login account, but I noticed, and of course I'm not interested at this point in my life in actually entering plant data into the database, but as a Joe Blow user, I am interested in creating my own private checklists of different areas. And I noticed that capability isn't up yet.
We are working on that, and that's something that we're going to be developing in the near future, and that comes in part through working with the OSU Herbarium collections manager, who also fortunately is a great programmer, and he's going to be helping us develop some of the plugins and tools that'll let you create your own species lists and then view those. So just to review what Cass said, if you're seeing my screen still, up in the upper right-hand corner, there is a login button. And here's where you can go to create an account that will ultimately let you do this. But that's something to keep your eye out for as we develop the website further. So you can go ahead and create an account, and the login and that name and stuff is just referring to the Oregon Flora website. So it doesn't have, whatever works for you to remember that.
Okay, thank you. So some comments here. Nancy says, wow, I've been using the website for months and had no idea what I could do with it. So that's great. There was a question here. I'd love to zoom in on a leaf or a stem or flower in the picture for a species. Can that be done?
Yes, you can do it to some extent. So look at an image. You can look at any image, and when you see the full record, so I'm seeing, I opened the slideshow view, and then in my screen in the lower right of that slide, that featured slide, there's the see the full record for this image. And when you click on that, you then get one of those detail collections record pages, but clicking on that, you then get a full screen view. And it doesn't have in many tiles of zoom, but you do get a little bit of a zoom, and that's sort of the extent of what we can access right now.
Okay, that's great. Susie asks, well, she says, thanks, Linda, love Oregon Flora. Are there any plans in the future to link iNaturalist observations into the Oregon Flora?
We have been talking about that quite a bit of late, and that, by the way, is also working with iNaturalist is a Native Plant Society of Oregon initiative, and we're looking at ways that we can integrate records that have been posted and gathered on iNaturalist and pull them into our observations. That being said, the reason we're not just doing this huge data dump is something that really, and I want to emphasize this is what makes Oregon Flora, I think, distinctive, is that the data that we present is curated. So it's not just any person who can see some red flower and say, I have blah, 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 and it appears on all of our maps and stuff. So we don't do it that way. And so that's why we don't just do this wholesale import of iNaturalist data, because we want to make sure that those data are curated and that they have a level of taxonomic, accuracy to them before we put them in with our very tightly curated data and put them on maps that are showing distributions. So linking and pulling the best of the best records from iNaturalist, having knowledgeable people review and vet those identifications before we integrate it into Oregon Flora's tools, that's definitely on our radar screen. And it's something, if anybody's interested in working with us on that, just let me know, because iNaturalist just has such a wealth of knowledge and information that when we put it all together, it just makes everybody's tools better and more robust.
That's a good answer. I appreciate that about the Oregon Flora. And I also really love iNaturalist and love the kind of big data feature of it. So I look forward to how that evolves. Christy says, how do botanists submit data to Oregon Flora lists, occurrences? I submit rare plant data to Orbic on private lands and wonder if that data is eventually shared with you.
One of the things that we, again, are working on is a really web-based way to share data. We don't have that yet. And so it's sort of like our old website used to do, which is if you have a species list or photographs that you'd like to contribute, right now you need to contact us through our information down in the footer, just info@oregonflora.org. And we can give you some templates, like if you don't have what used to exist, that'll help us better integrate this information, or just sort of get a feel of what images you have. So we do welcome lists of plants that people have identified or groups have identified, and we're very interested in images, especially those that for taxa that we need. We don't have good resources for. And right now you'll need to just contact our staff through the info@oregonflora.org to help us get that to you. As for ORBIC or rare plant lists, Christy, we routinely have data sharing with ORBIC, and actually we're just talking with them this afternoon. And so when either of us, either ORBIC or Oregon Flora has new data, we always share those. And so each organization has information about rare plants. And so those are integrated into our respective data sets.
Okay. I know there used to be a place on the old website where you could download a list of species that you needed photos for, or didn't have as many as you wanted. And I think there was a follow-up question. I see Kent's question there too, but Roger says, I cycle through the pictures and eventually realize I've cycled several times through the same pictures. Is there a way to put some kind of marker to show the end of the pictures?
I will bring that up with our programmer. I've noticed that issue too. And thanks, Roger. Yes, I'll put that on our list, our wish list with our programmer.
Okay. And then Kent says, a suggestion and a question. Suggestion. It would be real helpful if the wildflower planting filters included one for deer resistance. So that's the suggestion. And then the question is, I have an OSU app and noticed Oregon Sunshine doesn't show up on it when I search under that name. Woolly sunflower and the scientific name does, but Oregon Sunshine does not show up when searched on the OSU website. Do you have hints for using the app for more common names?
Okay. First, the deer resistance. I know as a gardener myself that lives out in the woods, that is something that people are very interested in. And we talked about it and we don't include that because it seems to be so hit and miss. I, through many years of living and trying to coexist with deer, often see it just depends on the generation. And if a young fawn learns that something tastes good, they'll eat it when mom and grandma might not have. So we just, call us cowardly, but we don't go there. So that's just what we've come up with. As for using the Oregon Wildflowers app and having common names, I don't know right now off the top of my head about Oregon Sunshine, if it's woolly sunflower or Oregon Sunshine. Another way is to, in the main menu screen of the Oregon Wildflowers app, you can go to Botanical Help. And see, this is for people who aren't familiar with this. This is what the splash page looks like. I think that's what they call it. But anyway, you can go to Botanical Help and see plant families, and then you can go to the plant family if you're familiar with that. And so Oregon Sunshine is in the Asteraceae family, and that gives you a list of all of the plants in that particular family, and you can scroll through and look through them. But I just don't know off the top of my head if Oregon Sunshine or woolly sunflower is listed, or if, so anyway, we are gonna, at the end of this month or the first week of June or so, are releasing, are updating the app. We're adding more taxa, and we're also adding diagnostic features in the discussion parts. And we're also refreshing all of the names, both the scientific and common names, and the maps for everything in the app. So if you own the app, that'll be pushed up to your version of the app in the next 2-3 weeks or so.
Hey, Linda, thank you. That is Kent. Yeah, I noticed on the website I could find it easily, and then when I tried what you saying, going to the family need. But when you get to sunflowers, Asteraceae or whatever it's called, it's like 1,000,000 words long, so I kind of gave up on it. But woolly sunflower did show up on it, but it was the only common name it showed up for, and I didn't know if you had any other hints besides that. It just seems such a common name for flower. I was just really surprised it didn't show up on the app.
Okay, well, hopefully but you did end up finding what you were.
No, I didn't. I went online to your.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
To Areophilum, to find Areophilum.
You look at it on the site you just showed, it shows up on that, but not on the mobile app. That's what it doesn't show.
Okay. I'm seeing, yeah, as common woolly sunflower.
Yeah.
So that's kind of tricky one to hide. It's sort of hiding in there.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, just want to know if there's another way to look. Thank you.
Okay, Carol says, does the mapping go over the border into California?
Yes, it does. And we're so excited because just recently, like in the past months, we have, through the power of Symbiota and the data sharing of Symbiota, tapped into the California, the CCH2, which is the California Consortium of Herbaria. And so we're presenting Oregon taxonomic concepts that are also distributed in California. So that's going to be great for all you folks down in the Siskiyou area.
Terrific. One question that I had was, and I didn't notice it, I hadn't paid it close attention, but I use a California site for this, but was there insect host information on the plants that were not in the gardening section? I'm trying to be better about sharing that with people when I can, even though it's not my specialty, because I think it's a great, thing for us all to be aware of.
It is great. We don't have any particular category capturing those data. If one of the floristic authors happened to note that, it would appear in the discussion under the plant description. So I believe I'm still sharing my screen. And so this is just a standard profile page. And in the little tab where it says Flora of Oregon, often a floristic description will have some sort of fun facts, and those are typically at the end. So if there were any sort of pollinator data or insect interactions, it would be there. We don't yet have any targeted initiative to develop that out as a separate category.
Okay, great. Oops, and I shared to Teresa the site that I use when I'm doing that, but I'll try to get that to everybody else. And then the other thing, I don't think I'll make sure there aren't any last questions, but you said commercially available. Could you expand on what that means a little bit about the native plants?
Native plants. When we first built the garden data set, that was through some funding that we got with the Oregon Department of Ag Specialty Crop Block Grant Program to help Oregon develop its native plant species as a specialty market. Because the horticulture and the floriculture industry is one of the largest economic sectors in Oregon's agricultural economy. And so in doing that, we went around the state and spoke with wholesalers and retailers of native plant species and developed, on our old website, we had about 275 different plant taxa that were commercially available through these. So obviously that was just a snapshot in time. it's a very dynamic situation. And through some new funding sources that we have, we're working this year to update that feature of making the noting which nurseries sell those plants featured in the Grow Natives tool and being able to filter on those. So that is something that we're developing further, but the selection that we have is an informed selection of those plants made from our previous year's studies.
Okay, thank you. And I know on the Native Plant Society, Susie Savoy just recently updated our kind of regional sources for plant materials, whether they're nurseries or seeds, and that's pinned right now on our Facebook page and somewhere on the website. And I know that others of the chapters also have like lists of nurseries if you're from another area. So those are, they don't say what they have, but places to look for some of those species or whatever is available. Okay, I think lots of thanks. Thank you, Linda. Great job explaining the site. Lots of appreciation. Sounds like we have some real fans out there for the site. It's so powerful. Wow, really fun. Some really neat ways. I'm going to have to really play with it. And I think, if anybody has any final questions? I'm not seeing anything. Anybody else? If I missed something, just chime in, unmute yourself. Great presentation, wonderful app. Thanks. Otherwise, I think that's the end for our last presentation of the season, and we'll see you all here in September. Christy put the information again. Stay in tune with Facebook and our e-news for upcoming events. And some clapping, lots of appreciation. Thanks so much, Linda, for taking the time.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me.